Hello, I'm Anawultus, and today I'm going to be talking about how scientific models and presuppositions interrelate with power scaling and dimensional tiering. And of course, this question is something that I don't think people have been talking about a lot, but I think it's something very important to make a statement on because a misunderstanding on these issues can lead someone to make some very incorrect statements on power scaling. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's different scientific models and different worldviews, different ontologies, and different epistemologies that people see the world with. So you've got naturalist materialism, you've got empiricism, you've got rationalism, you've got realism, you've got theistic presuppositionalism, and all those different models of how you can analyze truth. And many different authors of fictional work may have different concepts that they choose to base the internal mechanics of that fictional universe off of. So someone may choose to have a fictional universe that has a lot of supernatural elements, which of course, if you're viewing power scaling through the lens of naturalistic materialism, it is going to give you a very skewed outlook if you try to power scale it that way. Or on the other hand, someone may have a universe that's entirely naturalistic materialistic, and therefore if you're viewing from a supernaturalist outlook, there may be some things that may sound contradictory or that don't make sense to you. And as such, it's very important to always analyze the internal mechanics of a universe and to then power scale within that universe by those internal mechanics. Otherwise, you end up doing an injustice power scaling because you end up taking concepts that are different from the concepts that the author intends the universe to work on. And another example would be scientifically, because as time passes, some scientific theories become disproven, or in some cases simply unpopular compared to newer theories. And then newer theories come out and replace those, and then sometimes some old theories come back. And this thing we call the scientific consensus isn't really as solid a thing as many people like to think, because in science, people are always doing research. There's always things changing here and there, and as such, a scientific concept that a fictional author made use of in a work 20 years ago may now be considered outdated or unpopular scientifically. And as such, it's important to realize that when you're power scaling, you need to be aware of the scientific models that are used inside of a universe. Otherwise, you end up power scaling it in a way that becomes inconsistent with the universe's own mechanics. So those are all things to keep in mind. And on another note, we see, for example, one example on how to apply this is dimensional tiering. Now, there's some people that like to do dimensional tiering based on a specific scientific model. For example, M theory, where you've got 11 dimensions, and you've got a certain number of space dimensions, you've got time dimension, and a number of other dimensions, and therefore you tier characters dimensionally based on how many of those dimensions that character has, and you have those very specific dimensions that you use for tiering. Now, of course, this excludes hypothetical dimensions that are potentially higher, like higher time dimensions, higher spatial dimensions, and higher dimensions of other sorts. So the way I'd like to dimensionally tier, I like to keep my dimensions in categories For example, you've got space dimensions here, you've got time dimensions here, and maybe you've got dimensions of comedy here, and you grade each character based on how many dimensions in each category the character has, and then you can recombine that to get a holistic outlook on the power of that character. And what I think differentiates me in that sense from other people is that a lot of other people like to take scientific models and then base their dimensional tiering on that. And my type of dimensional tiering generally doesn't rely on scientific models in the sense that it allows for a variation in scientific models or in application from scientific models, because there's different scientific models that have different concepts of how many dimensions there are in certain categories, and that allows me to, by putting dimensions into those categories, it allows me to compare characters that have dimensions from different scientific models. So you've got supergravity, you've got M theory, you've got superstring theory. Those are just some examples. There's a lot of other examples, and a lot of these theories apply a different number of dimensions on how to understand the universe. And by putting the dimensions into categories, I can compare these characters that are based on those different scientific models without having to worry about doing a highly complex conversion, because I still have those time dimensions that I can separate out. I've got the space dimensions that I can separate out, and then I can grade the characters based on how many dimensions in each category they have in order to fully understand that viewpoint. Now, if anybody has any questions on this, if I've been a bit unclear, if you highly disagree with what I have to say, or if you'd like to co-host with me, please leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will either respond or make a video response, or maybe not respond, depending on what kind of comment it is, because there's some comments that I don't feel a need to respond to. There's some comments that I do feel a need to respond to, and there's all sorts of tiering on the comment section. See what I did there? There you go. So anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll be seeing you all next time on Awiltus over and out.